Hello there, friends. Welcome back to Daily Lore with Grandpa Ben. You better get comfortable tonight because we're going to take a long journey together through one of the most fascinating alternate histories ever conceived. We're going to walk through the entire timeline of the Fallout universe, from the golden days before the bombs fell, through the nuclear fire that consumed civilization, and into the scattered attempts at rebuilding that followed. This won't be a quick trip. We're going to follow the story in chronological order, the way it actually unfolded in the world itself, not the order the games were released. We'll start in the years before the Great War, when humanity was riding high on promises of atomic energy and a brighter tomorrow, completely unaware of the catastrophe looming on the horizon. We'll witness the moment everything changed on October 23, 2077, when the bombs fell and the old world died in nuclear fire. From there, we'll follow the survivors, the ones who crawled from the rubble, the ones who sealed themselves in underground vaults, and the ones who emerged decades later to find a world transformed beyond recognition. We'll trace the formation of new societies, the Brotherhood of Steel, born from soldiers who refused to follow orders they knew were wrong. The new California Republic, which grew from a tiny farming village into the largest nation in the post-war wasteland. Caesar's Legion, forged by a man who used ancient history to create a brutal empire. So let's dim the lights, take a deep breath, and step back in time to a world that looks like ours, but took a very different path toward a very different future. Chapter 2, Before the Bombs, the Diverging Timeline. To understand how the Fallout world became what it is, we need to understand where it split from our own history. Somewhere after World War II ended in 1945, something changed. The timeline diverged. While our world moved forward into transistors, microchips, and computers that could fit in your pocket, the Fallout world took a different technological path. In this alternate timeline, vacuum tubes and atomic energy became the dominant technologies. Instead of silicon chips getting smaller and more efficient, computers remained massive machines with banks of vacuum tubes. But in exchange, miniaturized nuclear reactors became commonplace. Cars ran on small fusion cells. Robots powered by atomic batteries walked the streets. The aesthetic and culture of the 1950s never really ended, just kept evolving in strange directions. By the year 2041, the world was running on atomic everything. Nuclear-powered cars cruised down highways. Robotic servants cleaned homes and served drinks. The Nuka-Cola Corporation sold its sugary sodas in bottles made to look like atomic bombs. People dressed in styles that would have looked at home in the Eisenhower era and truly believed that technology would solve all of humanity's problems. But beneath this shiny, optimistic surface, the world was dying. The resource wars began in 2052. Oil, the lifeblood of the old world's economy, was running out. Every major nation had built their civilization on petroleum, and now the wells were running dry. The European Commonwealth, a federation of European nations, turned its eyes toward the Middle East, where the last major oil reserves remained. In April of 2052, the European Commonwealth and the Middle East went to war. It was a desperate, brutal conflict. The European nations poured everything they had into securing those oil fields, because without oil, their economies would collapse and their people would freeze in the dark. But the war dragged on year after year, consuming resources faster than either side could replace them. By 2054, things escalated further. In January, a terrorist nuclear weapon detonated in Tel Aviv. Limited nuclear exchanges began in the Middle East, yet somehow the war continued. The United Nations was dissolved in July of 2052. With it went any hope of international cooperation to solve the energy crisis peacefully. Every nation was on its own. The United States, watching these wars unfold, made different preparations. American scientists had been working on fusion technology, trying to create miniaturized fusion reactors that could replace oil entirely. By the 2060s, they were making progress, but not fast enough. In 2060, facing protests at home, the United States sent troops into Mexico to pressure the government into supporting American interests. 6 years later, in 2066, the real catastrophe began. The People's Republic of China, also facing energy shortages, launched an invasion of Alaska. Chinese forces crossed the Bering Strait and pushed into America's northernmost territory, aiming to seize the oil fields there. The Sino-American War had begun. It would last for 11 years and would ultimately end the world. The United States military responded with everything it had. The war bogged down into a brutal stalemate. That's when American science made a breakthrough: powered combat armor. The T-45 power armor turned a single soldier into a walking tank. By 2069, improved T-51 power armor was being deployed to the Alaskan front, and American soldiers began pushing back the Chinese forces. Meanwhile, in 2072, the U.S. government annexed Canada. The official justification was protection, but it was really about control. American corporations moved into Canada and began stripping the country's resources. Canadian citizens who protested were met with harsh crackdowns. This was the environment in which the Vault program was created. Vault Tech Corporation, working with the U.S. government, proposed building a network of underground fallout shelters across America. The official purpose was to allow selected Americans to survive nuclear war. But there was another purpose kept secret. Most vaults weren't designed to save people. They were designed as social experiments. Vault 11 had to sacrifice one person each year. Vault 77 contained only one man and a crate of puppets. Vault 12 was designed to never completely seal. The list went on. Out of 122 vaults, only a handful were actual control vaults designed to function properly. The people selected for the vaults didn't know any of this. While Vault Tech prepared its experiments, major corporations shaped the pre-war world. Poseidon Energy dominated the energy sector. Robco Industries manufactured robots. The Nuka-Cola Corporation became so wealthy that entire towns existed just to serve their bottling plants. West Tech developed weapons and bioweapons in secret facilities. And behind them all, the Enclave, the secret council of the United States elite, prepared for the inevitable. By 2074, American forces had pushed deep into Chinese territory. The war that started in Alaska had spread across the Pacific. American forces fought on the Chinese mainland, and China was losing. In March of 2077, the president and key members of the Enclave evacuated from Washington, D.C. They retreated to secure bunkers, with the main group heading for an oil rig off the California coast. The public was never told. October of 2077 arrived. The Chinese military, backed into a corner facing complete destruction, made a fateful decision. Based on the strategic situation and what we know of the timeline, it appears that China, with nothing left to lose, chose to launch their nuclear arsenal. If they were going down, they would take America with them. On October 20th, 3 days before the end of the world, Captain Roger Maxson at Mariposa Military Base in California made a terrible discovery. His unit had been assigned to guard West Tech scientists conducting research on the forced evolutionary virus, FEV, designed to create super soldiers. What Maxson discovered was that the scientists were using military prisoners as test subjects, transforming them into hulking mutants against their will. Maxson, horrified, executed the lead scientist and declared his unit in desertion from the United States Army. He broadcast this desertion on October 20th. He waited for a response, for court-martial papers, for anything. But the military command never replied. They were too busy preparing for what was about to happen. 3 days later, Maxson would understand why no one had come for him. The world had reached the end. Two superpowers, both exhausted, both desperate, both armed with thousands of nuclear weapons. One nation facing defeat and choosing damnation, another confident in its power but about to learn that power means nothing in the face of extinction. On the morning of October 23, 2077, someone gave an order. Someone authorized a launch. and the Great War began. Chapter 3, The Great War of 2077, October 23, 2077, started like any other Saturday. On the American East Coast, families ate breakfast. Children played in yards. People planned their weekends. Nobody knew they had hours to live. The morning was quiet, the kind of calm that makes you believe the world will always keep turning the way it has. But at 9:13 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, the Integrated Operational Nuclear Detection System detected the first missile launches. Within 4 minutes, NORAD confirmed what every strategist had feared. Nuclear weapons were in the air, heading for the United States. At 9:26 a.m., the president, safe in his bunker, ordered a full retaliatory strike. Every missile the country had was given clearance to fire. If America was going to burn, China would burn with it. 16 minutes later, at 9:42 a.m., the first Chinese nuclear warheads struck the East Coast. Pennsylvania and New York were hit almost simultaneously. The thermal flash vaporized everything within a mile of ground zero. Buildings that had stood for centuries turned to dust in an instant. People were killed so fast they didn't have time to realize what was happening. In Central Park, in downtown Pittsburgh, in thousands of homes and streets, human beings simply ceased to exist. The shock waves followed, traveling outward at hundreds of miles per hour, flattening everything that hadn't been vaporized. Glass turned to shrapnel, buildings collapsed, fires erupted as gas lines ruptured. The blast waves rolled across the landscape like the hammer of an angry god. By 9:47 a.m., clocks across the East Coast stopped. The electromagnetic pulses fried electrical systems. Watches froze at that moment. And for the people still alive, those far enough from the blasts to survive the flash and shock, the real nightmare was just beginning. The air raid sirens had started wailing minutes earlier, but many people ignored them. There had been false alarms before. This time was different. Most people couldn't find shelter. The Vault-Tec vaults sealed their doors, but the vast majority hadn't been selected for vault space. Public shelters were overwhelmed instantly. Across America, nuclear weapons continued to fall. Washington, D.C. was hit multiple times. Los Angeles was struck by multiple warheads, the city reduced to a crater of radioactive glass. Las Vegas was targeted by 77 nuclear missiles, though a mysterious defense system would destroy or disable most of them. Boston, already hit, was struck again by a Chinese submarine positioned off the coast. The nuclear exchange lasted 2 hours. 120 minutes of continuous launches, detonations, and death. American missiles struck Chinese cities. Chinese missiles struck American targets. Other nations launched their own strikes. Europe, already devastated by decades of war, was hit again. The Middle East was cratered. The Soviet Union, still existing in this timeline, launched missiles at various targets. The standard warhead yielded between 200 and 750 kilotons. The goal wasn't just to win a war, it was to ensure the enemy could never recover. Every major city, every military base, every power plant, every industrial center was struck. Tens of millions died in the first hour alone. About a week after the bombs fell, black rain began. It was contaminated with radioactive particles, toxic ash, and chemical residue. It fell for 4 days straight. Plants died, animals died, rivers and lakes turned poisonous. The few creatures that survived found themselves in a world fundamentally altered at the atomic level. In the vaults, the dwellers could only guess at what happened outside. The lucky ones were in control, vaults designed to actually protect them. But in the experimental vaults, real horror shows were beginning. In Vault 11, the computer demanded yearly sacrifices. In Vault 87, FEV experiments began transforming vault dwellers into super mutants. Outside, survivors faced an impossible situation. The world they knew had ended. Cities were ruins. The government was gone. People who had lived comfortable middle-class lives were suddenly fighting over canned food. Radiation was everywhere. Some people, exposed to high levels, began to change. Their skin became leathery. Their hair fell out. They stopped aging normally. These people became ghouls, humans transformed by extreme radiation, but maintaining their intelligence and humanity. Some, called feral ghouls, lost their minds entirely. In Mariposa Military Base, Captain Roger Maxson and his men had survived. The base's defenses had kept them safe, but Maxson knew they couldn't stay. On November 14, 2077, Maxson led his soldiers and their families toward the Lost Hills bunker. The journey took weeks. Maxson's wife died on the trek. When they finally reached Lost Hills, only a fraction of those who started had survived. By the end of October, the Great War was over. It had lasted 2 hours. In those 2 hours, human civilization was effectively destroyed. Billions had died. The clocks had stopped at 9:47. The world that existed before was gone forever. And now the long, slow process of survival would begin. Chapter 4, Ashes and First Survivors, 2077 to 2102. The years immediately following the Great War were the darkest in human history. In basements and bunkers, in subway tunnels and underground shelters, survivors huddled and waited for the worst of the radiation to clear. Food ran out, water became scarce. Many who survived nuclear war died from starvation or disease. The first winter was brutal. Nuclear winter dropped temperatures far below normal. Snow fell on deserts. The few plants that survived the blasts now withered in cold and darkness. People burned whatever they could find for warmth. Many didn't make it through to spring, but humans are remarkably adaptable. By 2078, small communities began forming. People banded together for protection and resource sharing. They scavenged canned food, bottled water, medicine. They learned to avoid the highest radiation areas. Violence was common. Raiders, people who decided taking was easier than trading, attacked settlements and killed without mercy. In those early years, there was no law, no police, no one to stop them. At Lost Hills, Maxson spent 5 years organizing his people. In 2082, he formally established the Brotherhood of Steel. He'd concluded that humanity couldn't be trusted with dangerous technology. The Brotherhood's mission was to preserve technology and knowledge, but also control it. They would be knights protecting civilization. Maxson used satellite communications to reach out across the wasteland. In Appalachia, he made contact with Lieutenant Elizabeth Taggarty. She and her rangers had survived the war and were struggling to maintain order. Maxson's vision resonated with her, and she began organizing the Appalachian chapter of the Brotherhood. In California, settlements were stabilizing. Shady Sands, a small farming community established by survivors from Vault 15, began growing crops and trading with neighbors. The hub became a trading center. The boneyard saw multiple communities form among the ruins. These early settlements were fragile, but they persisted. Some survivors became ghouls, their bodies transformed by radiation. Many retained their intelligence and tried to adapt. Necropolis, built around Vault 12, became a ghoul city. They faced discrimination, but persisted in building their own society. Roger Maxson died of cancer in 2135. His son took over and immediately changed policies. Where Roger believed the Brotherhood should help wastelanders, his son thought wastelanders weren't worthy. The Brotherhood stopped recruiting from outside and became more isolated. By 2102, a quarter century after the bombs, the landscape had changed significantly. Settlements were larger, trade routes connected communities. Raiders were still a threat, but less overwhelming, and in Appalachia, Vault 76 was about to open its doors. Chapter 5, Reclaiming Appalachia, Fallout 76. On October 23, 2102, exactly 25 years after the bombs fell, Vault 76 opened. This vault in West Virginia was a control vault with no sinister experiments. The dwellers had been kept safe and healthy. On Reclamation Day, they stepped out to rebuild society in Appalachia. What they found was both better and worse than expected. Appalachia had been hit less severely than many regions. Plant life had begun recovering. Rivers flowed again. But Appalachia wasn't empty. The responders had formed from emergency service survivors. Firefighters, police, doctors. They'd established stations offering medical care and clean water. By 2102, they were already gone, wiped out by the scorched plague. But their facilities and knowledge remained. The Free States were preppers who'd seen the war coming. They'd built bunkers and stockpiled supplies. When the bombs fell, they were ready. They traded with others, but maintained fierce independence. Raiders preyed on weaker settlements as everywhere else. Some were desperate people making terrible choices. Others were genuinely cruel. The Brotherhood of Steel had established a presence through Paladin Elizabeth Taggarty, but the Scorch Plague destroyed them. The Scorch Plague was connected to creatures called Scorch Beasts, massive bat-like mutants. The plague transformed humans into scorched beings with hardened skin who attacked anyone not infected. By 2102, the Brotherhood's Appalachian chapter was destroyed, the responders were gone, and the Free States were sealed in bunkers. The Vault 76 dwellers had to learn quickly. They encountered automated systems left by the responders, recordings explaining survival. They found Brotherhood outposts with training programs still running. They discovered Free States bunkers with warnings and supplies. The dwellers proved themselves. They helped establish settlements, fought the scorched, and hunted scorched beasts. They rediscovered solutions to problems the region faced. They weren't just playing at being survivors. They were becoming the people Appalachia needed. Appalachia slowly stabilized. Communities grew. Trade routes reopened. The scorched remained a threat, but humans learned to fight them. The Brotherhood was eventually re-established when a new expeditionary force arrived from the west. Appalachia showed the fundamental tension that would define the wasteland. Could people work together to rebuild, or would they fall back into violence? The Vault dwellers and wasteland survivors worked toward answers, building something new from the ashes. Chapter 6, Seeds of Nations. Little settlements, big futures. While Appalachia struggled, other parts of the wasteland quietly built foundations for something larger. The years between 2102 and 2161 saw the emergence of communities that would become major powers. In Southern California, Shady Sands represented humanity's rebuilding potential. Founded by Vault 15 survivors who emerged around 2097, Shady Sands started as a simple farming community. They had irrigated fields, Brahmin providing milk and meat, and a small wall for protection. The town was led by Aradesh, one of the original Vault dwellers. He understood that survival meant cooperation. He made treaties, established trade routes, and welcomed travelers. His daughter, Tandy, was growing up learning from his example. Shady Sands wasn't wealthy or powerful. They struggled with water shortages, crop failures, and raiders. But they persisted, building slowly and carefully, always thinking about making tomorrow better than today. The hub, built in the ruins of Los Angeles, became a major trading center. Caravans came from across Southern California to trade weapons, ammunition, food, water, medicine, and technology. The hub had no central government, just powerful merchant families. Water merchants from the hub controlled access to clean water. They'd found functioning pre-war pumps and purification systems. This made them incredibly wealthy and powerful. Some used this responsibly. Others extorted desperate communities. The Boneyard, another LA settlement, was rougher. Built among skeletal skyscrapers, it housed competing factions. The regulators maintained order. Gun runners manufactured weapons. The followers of the apocalypse established a library and hospital. The followers would become increasingly important. They believed knowledge should be free and medicine available to all. They operated libraries and clinics, teaching people to read and treating injuries and diseases. Junktown, led by Killian Darkwater, specialized in scavenging and repairing pre-war technology. Necropolis, the ghoul city around Vault 12, represented a different kind of community, facing constant discrimination but persisting. Trade routes connected these settlements, creating interdependence. Caravans traveled from the hub to Junktown to Shady Sands, carrying goods and news. Bottle caps became the common currency, specifically Nuka-Cola caps, common enough to be useful, rare enough to have value. By 2161, California had achieved fragile stability. It wasn't safe. Raiders still attacked. Mutated creatures threatened settlements, but trade was functioning and communities were growing. This was the world the Vault Dweller would emerge into when Vault 13's water chip failed. In Shady Sands, young Tandy was learning how to lead, how to balance idealism with pragmatism. One day, she would transform that small town into the new California Republic. But for now, she was just a girl in a small town, dreaming of a better future. Chapter 7, Fallout 1, The Vault Dweller and the Master, December 5th, 2161. In Vault 13, the water purification chip stopped working. Without it, the vault's water supply would last only months. The overseer selected a young vault dweller for a mission, find a replacement chip, and return before everyone died of thirst. They had 150 days. On December 5th, the vault dweller left the vault for the first time. The massive gear-shaped door rolled open. They stepped into a world nothing like the simulations had prepared them for. The immediate area was desolate, rocky outcroppings, sparse vegetation, scattered ruins. Their first destination was Vault 15. According to records, it had the same water chip model, but Vault 15 was a disaster. Raiders had taken over the ruins, and the water chip was damaged beyond repair. The Vault Dweller had traveled days for nothing. Nearby was Shady Sands. Aradesh welcomed them, offering food, water, and rest. The Vault Dweller learned about the town's problems: rad scorpions attacking Brahmin herds, raiders threatening, and Tandy kidnapped by the Khans. The Vault Dweller helped rescue Tandy and fight off rad scorpions, earning respect and learning about wasteland survival. Aradesh told them about the hub. The Vault Dweller traveled there and learned about water merchants. For a steep price, they would supply Vault 13 with water, buying time to find a chip. The cost was thousands of caps, but it bought precious time. At the hub, the Vault Dweller also heard disturbing rumors. People were disappearing. Massive humanoids were taking them away. Survivors spoke of Mariposa and the Glow, places these creatures seemed to come from. The Vault Dweller traveled to the Brotherhood of Steel's bunker at Lost Hills. Initially suspicious, the Brotherhood eventually shared information. The creatures were super mutants created by the forced evolutionary virus. The Brotherhood wanted information from the Glow, the ruins of West Tech, highly radioactive and deadly. The Vault Dweller agreed to go, wearing power armor for protection. The Glow was terrible. Radiation was off the scale. Defense systems still functioned after 80 years. Bodies were everywhere. Scientists and security personnel who died when the bombs hit. But the Vault Dweller found data about FEV research and learned it had been moved to Mariposa. The Vault Dweller also made a stop at Necropolis, the Ghoul City, facing a super mutant force demanding surrender. The Vault Dweller helped however they could and discovered something crucial: a water chip in Vault 12 that could be taken. The Vault Dweller returned the chip to Vault 13. The vault was saved, but the super mutants were still out there, still taking people. The Overseer gave a new mission: find the source and stop it. This led to Mariposa Military Base. Deep beneath, the Vault Dweller found FEV vats still bubbling away. Evidence showed super mutants were dipping humans into this liquid, transforming them. They were building an army on orders from someone called the Master. The trail led to an old military bunker where the Vault Dweller finally confronted the Master. Richard Gray had fallen into FIV decades earlier, in 2102, shortly after the vaults first began opening, and been transformed into something beyond human. His body was a mass of flesh fused with machinery and computer systems. He was connected to the bunker's defenses. able to control everything. The Master had a vision: transform everyone into super mutants. Super mutants were stronger, more resilient, immune to radiation and disease. If everyone was a super mutant, there would be no conflict between different types of humans. He called it the Unity. But the Vault Dweller had evidence. Super mutants were sterile. The FEV transformation destroyed reproductive capability. The Unity would last one generation and die out forever. Confronted with this fact, the Master broke. His grand plan was meaningless. He activated the bunker's self-destruct sequence. The Vault Dweller barely escaped. With the Master dead, the super mutant army fell apart. Some scattered across the wasteland. Others became threats in their own right. The Vault Dweller returned to Vault 13, expecting a hero's welcome. Instead, the Overseer told them they couldn't come back. They'd been changed by the wasteland. They questioned authority. They'd make other Vault Dwellers restless. The Vault Dweller was exiled. After saving the Vault and stopping the Master, they were forced to leave. But they weren't alone. Other Vault Dwellers followed them into the wasteland. Together they traveled north and founded Arroyo, a new community built around the ideals the Vault Dweller had learned: self-sufficiency, cooperation, and adaptation. Chapter 8, Between 1 and 2, NCR and Enclave in the Shadows. The 80 years between 2161 and 2241 saw massive changes. Shady Sands flourished under Aradesh's leadership. The town expanded, grew wealthier through trade, and became prosperous. By the 2180s, Shady Sands was the most prosperous settlement in Southern California. Its success inspired discussion. Why remain isolated? Why not formalize relationships, create unified government? The idea of a nation began taking shape. In 2186, a trial council government was established. Representatives from multiple settlements met to draft a constitution. In 2189, the new California Republic was officially founded with 5 states: Shady Sands, Los Angeles, Maxon, the Hub, and Dayglow. The NCR's flag was a 2-headed bear, adapted from California's pre-war flag. Aradesh became the first president, but he was old and ready to pass leadership. In 2196, Tandy was unanimously elected as the second president. Tandy would serve for 52 years, winning election after election. Under her leadership, the Republic expanded, incorporating more territories. She focused on infrastructure, education, trade, and economic growth. The NCR military grew from a militia into a professional army. The NCR Rangers became legendary, but the NCR also had problems. As it grew larger, government became more bureaucratic. The military was stretched thin. Taxation was unpopular. Corruption crept in. The NCR began resembling the pre-war United States in both good and bad ways. To the north, Arroyo remained small and isolated. The Vault Dweller grew old, had children and grandchildren, and eventually passed away. They'd lived to see their exile transform into freedom. They died believing they'd made the right choices. Elsewhere, the Enclave, sitting on Control Station Enclave off the California coast, monitored the mainland. They watched settlements form and the NCR grow with contempt. The Enclave believed themselves the legitimate continuation of the United States government. Everyone else was contaminated by radiation in their eyes. In the 2230s, the Enclave began preparing for expansion. They excavated Mariposa, finding FAV samples. They captured wastelanders for experiments. They developed a modified FAV strain designed to kill anyone with mutations, essentially everyone living on the surface. It was genocide justified by defining wastelanders as already dead. But the Enclave's plans remained secret. Wastelanders knew nothing about the threat developing offshore. They focused on building the NCR, trading, fighting raiders, living their lives. The Brotherhood of Steel continued their isolation. They collected technology obsessively but rarely shared it. This policy made enemies. The NCR wanted Brotherhood technology. The Brotherhood refused. The relationship grew increasingly tense. By 2241, the NCR had been a nation for 52 years. It sprawled across hundreds of miles, and according to records from the era, had a population approaching 700,000. Tandy was over 90, but still led the Republic. And in Arroyo, a young person was about to embark on a journey that would confront the Enclave's genocidal plans. Chapter 9, Fallout 2, The Chosen One and the Enclave. Arroyo in 2241 was dying. Crops were failing. Brahmin were sick. Water was dwindling. The village the Vault Dweller founded faced extinction. The village elder, the Vault Dweller's daughter, turned to stories her parent had told about a Garden of Eden creation kit, a Gek that could terraform land and restore it. She chose her own child to make the journey, just as her parent had been chosen decades before. This person, the Chosen One, left Arroyo with few supplies and a critical mission: find a Gek before the village starved. The elder gave them the Vault Dweller's Pip-Boy, a tangible connection to their ancestors' journey. The wasteland was very different now. The NCR controlled much of California. Towns were larger. Trade routes were well established. There was even paper money. But prosperity brought new problems. Raiders were more organized. Slavery had become common. Drug manufacturing had become an industry. The Chosen One's journey took them across Northern California. Their first stop was Klamath, a trapping community where people lived off hunting geckos. From there they traveled to various settlements. The Den, controlled by slavers and drug dealers. Modoc, a farming community with conflicts. Vault City, technologically advanced but using servant slaves. In their travels, the Chosen One heard disturbing rumors. People were disappearing near the coast. Entire communities found abandoned. Something was taking people and nobody knew what. They learned about the Enclave, fragmentary information at first, sightings of advanced soldiers in power armor, reports of flying machines called vertibirds, references to Navarro, a refueling station. The trail led to Vault 13, which they found recently emptied. Security footage showed soldiers in advanced power armor rounding up all Vault Dwellers and forcing them to leave. At Navarro, the Chosen One discovered the truth. The Enclave had been kidnapping wastelanders for experiments. They'd taken Vault 13 dwellers because Vault Dwellers had minimal radiation exposure. The Chosen One learned the Enclave was operating from an oil rig far offshore and had developed modified FEV to kill mutated humans. They planned to release this virus into the jet stream, killing almost everyone while preserving themselves. Getting to the oil rig required finding a way to travel there. An old oil tanker, the PMV Valdez, in San Francisco's harbor, had been refitted with technology to navigate to the Enclave's platform. The Chosen One got it working with help from the Schiff, descendants of a Chinese submarine crew, and the Brotherhood of Steel's outpost. With the Valdez operational, the Chosen One sailed for Control Station Enclave. Getting inside was nearly impossible without help, but some Enclave scientists had begun questioning the genocide plan. Dr. Curling realized wastelanders were still human and could be convinced to sabotage the FEV release. The Chosen One fought through the rig's levels, encountering heavy resistance. They found Vault 13 dwellers imprisoned and freed them. They encountered Frank Horrigan, a super mutant in advanced power armor who served as the Enclave's enforcer. On the presidential level, the Chosen One confronted President Richardson, who explained his plan without shame. The Chosen One disagreed. They'd met people from all walks of life across the wasteland. All were human. Regardless of radiation exposure, all deserved to live. However handled, Control Station Enclave was destroyed. The reactor detonated, the platform collapsed, the oil rig sank, Richardson died, Horrigan died, the genocidal FEAV was destroyed. The Enclave's plan was stopped. Returning to Arroyo with a Gek, the Chosen One fulfilled their mission. The device restored fertility to the soil and purity to the water. Arroyo was saved. The people of Arroyo and Vault 13 decided to merge communities, combining tribal knowledge with technological understanding. Tandy passed away in 2248 after serving 52 years as president. She'd led the republic from 5 states to a nation spanning hundreds of miles with nearly 1 million people. She died knowing she'd built something lasting. Chapter 10, Expansion, Empires, and Caesar. The decades following the Enclave's defeat saw the NCR transform from a regional power into an empire. With Tandy's death, successive presidents continued expansion policies, but without her wisdom, expansion became more aggressive. Under President Wendell Peterson, who served 17 years, the NCR adopted Manifest Destiny. Expansion was framed as bringing civilization, but was really imperialism. The military grew enormously, becoming an occupying force. Taxes were imposed. Local governance was replaced by NCR bureaucracy. Expansion brought benefits, rebuilt roads, increased trade, improved medical care, decreased crime, but it also created resentment. Communities that valued independence were absorbed whether they wanted to be or not. The NCR's heavy-handed tactics turned some territories into enemies rather than citizens. Far to the east, something new was being born. In 2247, Edward Sallow, a Followers of the Apocalypse member, was traveling in Arizona on a linguistic research expedition with Joshua Graham and Bill Calhoun. The Blackfoot tribe captured them. Sallow was intelligent, charismatic, and well-educated. He'd read extensively about ancient Rome, particularly Julius Caesar's campaigns. When captured, Sallow saw an opportunity. The Blackfoot tribe was at war with 7 others and losing. Sallow offered to help them win using Roman military tactics. Within a year, the Blackfoots had conquered rival tribes. Sallow integrated conquered peoples, stripping them of old identities and forcing new ones. In 2247, Sallow declared himself Caesar, claiming to be the son of Mars with divine mandate to conquer humanity. Caesar's legion expanded across Arizona, Utah, Colorado, and New Mexico. They conquered tribe after tribe. Those who surrendered were conscripted or enslaved. Those who resisted were crucified as warnings. Women were taken as slaves. Children were indoctrinated. By 2250, the Legion controlled vast territories east of the Colorado River. Caesar dreamed of conquering westward, of taking California. He saw the NCR as the perfect enemy. In 2274, Caesar's scouts discovered Hoover Dam, the massive hydroelectric facility spanning the Colorado River. Controlling the dam meant controlling water and electricity for a huge region. The NCR had already established a presence, but an unexpected factor complicated everything. Robert House, the enigmatic ruler of New Vegas. House had been a brilliant inventor before the war. He'd seen the war coming and prepared, building a life support system in the Lucky 38 casino and entering suspended animation. House's computers shot down or disabled most missiles targeting Vegas. Out of 77 warheads, only 9 hit. When House emerged decades later, he began reclaiming Vegas, making deals with raider groups to serve him. The chairman, Omertas, and White Glove Society agreed in exchange for wealth and security. House reopened casinos, attracting traders and gamblers. New Vegas became profitable and independent. When the NCR arrived at Hoover Dam, House negotiated the Treaty of New Vegas. NCR could occupy the dam and take 95% of its power output. The Strip would remain independent. NCR citizens could visit, and House would receive 5%. It was pragmatic compromise. Caesar's Legion rejected any compromise. In 2277, they launched their first assault on Hoover Dam. The battle involved thousands. NCR forces held the dam while Legion troops attacked in waves. Chief Hanlon set a trap at Boulder City. Legion elite troops pursued into the city, then Rangers detonated explosives, devastating the Legion's best soldiers. With their elite devastated, the main assault faltered. NCR counterattacked and drove the Legion back. The First Battle of Hoover Dam was an NCR victory, but costly. Caesar, enraged, punished his legate Joshua Graham. The Praetorian Guard covered Graham in pitch, set him on fire, and threw him into the Grand Canyon. Graham survived, horribly burned, becoming the burned man. Caesar appointed Lannius, the monster of the East, as new legate. The NCR faced problems. President Kimball's political future depended on holding the Mojave, but it drained resources. Soldiers died far from home. Many questioned whether the Mojave was worth the cost. By 2281, 4 years after the first battle, the situation was tense. The NCR held the dam but couldn't advance. The Legion controlled everything east but couldn't cross. House maintained Vegas and watched. Everyone knew another battle was coming. That's when a courier was shot in the head and left for dead. Chapter 11, Fallout 3, the Capital Wasteland and Project Purity. 200 miles south of the Commonwealth, the Capital Wasteland struggled under conditions worse than almost anywhere. The concentration of strikes on DC left the region heavily irradiated, filled with feral ghouls and super mutants. Vault 101 had sealed October 23, 2077, but it had its own experiment. The vault was never supposed to open. The Overseer had absolute authority to keep it sealed forever. James, a scientist who came from outside with his infant child, was allowed inside for his technical skills. His child, the Lone Wanderer, grew up believing the vault was the only world. Life was stable but stifling. The Overseer ruled with an iron fist. On the Lone Wanderer's 19th birthday in 2277, James disappeared. He'd somehow left the vault, opening the sealed door. The Overseer was furious, accusing the Lone Wanderer of helping. Security came with orders to kill them. The Lone Wanderer fled with help from Amata, the Overseer's daughter. They stepped into blinding sunlight, seeing the surface for the first time. The Capital Wasteland was harsh. Radiation was everywhere. Clean water was desperately scarce. Most settlements survived on irradiated water that slowly poisoned everyone. The Lone Wanderer searched for their father, following rumors. James had been working on Project Purity before the war, an ambitious plan to purify all water in the tidal basin. He'd abandoned it when his wife died during childbirth, taking his baby to Vault 101. Now he'd left to finish what he started. The trail led to Megaton, a settlement built in a crater around an unexploded atomic bomb. Following leads meant traveling into Washington, D.C., a nightmarish ruin filled with feral ghouls, super mutants, and radiation hotspots. The ruins were unlike anything else. The Capitol building had a massive hole in its dome. The Washington Monument was cracked. The White House was a crater. Everywhere, super mutants had established strongholds. These mutants, created by FEV experiments in Vault 87, were incredibly strong but mindlessly violent. The Lone Wanderer eventually found their father at the Jefferson Memorial, Project Purity's site. James had gathered scientists and was trying to restart the project. He was older, worn down but determined. Clean water would transform the Capital Wasteland. People were dying from radiation poisoning from drinking contaminated water, but restarting required a GEC. James sent the Lone Wanderer to Vault 112. The vault was a nightmare. Its experiment involved a single person, Overseer Braun, controlling everything through simulation. Vault dwellers lived in virtual reality pods, while Braun subjected them to horrible scenarios for entertainment. The Lone Wanderer navigated Braun's games to retrieve the GEC. With the GEC, the Lone Wanderer returned. James and his team were ready to activate Project Purity. Then the Enclave arrived. Colonel Augustus Autumn, who'd grown up on the oil rig, led forces that had fled California after the Chosen One's victory. They'd retreated to Raven Rock under President John Henry Eden, except Eden wasn't human. He was a Zack supercomputer programmed to maintain continuity of government. When Richardson died, Eden activated, created a personality, and declared itself president. The Enclave soldiers didn't know they followed a computer. The Enclave wanted Project Purity. Autumn believed controlling water supply would give leverage to re-establish American government. James, refusing to let the Enclave use his work to control people, triggered catastrophic radiation release in the purifier chamber. The flood killed James and forced the Enclave to withdraw. The lone wanderer escaped with Brotherhood help. The Brotherhood in the capital wasteland was led by Elder Owen Lyons, who'd broken from Western Brotherhood isolationism. Lyons believed the Brotherhood should actively help wastelanders. His chapter fought supermutants, protected settlements, and tried bringing order. Lyons took the lone wanderer to the Citadel, the Brotherhood's base in the Pentagon ruins. He offered to help finish Project Purity and stop the Enclave, but needed help first. The Brotherhood had Liberty Prime, a massive pre-war robot designed to fight communists. But it wasn't operational. The lone wanderer helped gather what the Brotherhood needed, raiding Enclave positions and retrieving technology. Along the way, they discovered Eden wanted them at Raven Rock. The computer president had a different plan from Autumn's. At Raven Rock, Eden revealed himself as a computer and explained his vision. Like Richardson, Eden wanted to purify humanity by killing everyone with mutations. He'd modified FEV into a toxin that would contaminate Project Purity's water, killing anyone who drank it except pure humans. Eden tried convincing the lone wanderer this genocide was necessary. The lone wanderer refused, either destroying Eden's core or convincing him his plan was flawed, causing Eden to self-destruct Raven Rock entirely. With Enclave leadership eliminated, Autumn retreated to the memorial for a final stand. The Brotherhood, with Liberty Prime operational, marched on the memorial. Liberty Prime was overwhelming, hurling nuclear bombs and shouting propaganda. The Enclave couldn't stop it. The Brotherhood pushed through. Inside, Autumn made a last offer: surrender or he'd destroy the purifier. The lone wanderer refused. A firefight erupted. Autumn died. The purifier was ready, but activating required someone to enter a radiation-flooded chamber and input the code, a suicide mission. The choice of what happened next varied. The lone wanderer could enter themselves, sacrificing their life for the project. They could send Sarah Lyons, Elder Lyons' daughter, to complete the activation instead. Or, if they'd been persuaded by Eden's arguments, they could sabotage the purifier with modified FEV, though this dark path was rarely chosen. In most accounts of what transpired, Project Purity was successfully activated and began producing clean water. Within weeks, Brotherhood caravans distributed purified water across the capital wasteland. People drank clean water for the first time in their lives. Children would grow healthier, communities would flourish. The Enclave was broken, the Brotherhood became the dominant force, and the lone wanderer, alive or dead, became a legend who brought clean water and saved countless lives. Chapter 12, Fallout New Vegas, War for the Mojave. The Mojave courier story began with an ending. They'd been hired to deliver a platinum chip from Prim to New Vegas. But Benny, leader of the chairman, wanted that chip. He ambushed the courier at Good Springs Cemetery, took the chip, shot them twice in the head, and left them buried. The courier should have died, but a Securitron named Victor dug them up. Dr. Mitchell in Good Springs patched them up. Against all odds, the courier survived. Mitchell let them loose with a warning. Someone tried to kill them. They might want to figure out who and why. The courier set out with one goal: find the man in the checkered coat and get answers. The trail led through Prim, overrun by convicts. The courier helped clear. At the Mojave outpost, they learned Benny headed to New Vegas. Getting there wasn't simple. The direct route through Quarry Junction was blocked by death claws. The courier took the long way through Nipton and Novick. At Nipton, they encountered aftermath of a Legion raid. The town had been judged by Vulpes Inculta. Some townspeople enslaved, others crucified. The mayor burned alive in tires as punishment. Vulpes explained Nipton had been complicit, trading travelers to the Legion. This was the courier's first encounter with Legion methods, shocking brutality designed to terrify. In Novick, the courier learned Benny continued to New Vegas. They helped Boone, a former NCR sniper, identify who sold his pregnant wife to the Legion. When the courier finally reached New Vegas, they found a surreal oasis. Casinos were operational, neon lights blazed, gamblers won and lost fortunes. In the harsh desert, Vegas offered unlimited luxury for anyone with caps, but entering the Strip required credit check or passport. Eventually, through persistence, the courier made it past gates. The Tops Casino was easy to find. Benny acted as though nothing happened. He'd worked for House for years, but wanted independence. The Platinum Chip was key to controlling House's Securitron army stored beneath Fortification Hill. The courier confronted Benny. They could kill him, but casino security would intervene or play along, meeting Benny privately, where he'd try betraying them again. One way or another, Benny's schemes ended. The courier recovered the chip and learned its purpose. Then House summoned the courier to the Lucky 38, offering a job: deliver the chip to the Securitron bunker beneath Fortification Hill and activate House's upgraded army. In exchange, House would make them wealthy. Refuse, and House had ways of making people regret defiance, but the courier had other options. Ambassador Crocker at the NCR embassy wanted help securing the Mojave for the Republic. Caesar sent an invitation to visit Fortification Hill as honored guest, and Yes Man, a Securitron Benny had reprogrammed, offered to help the courier take New Vegas themselves. The courier was suddenly the most important person in the Mojave. Every major faction wanted their help. Whoever they supported would likely win at Hoover Dam. If the courier delivered the chip to House, they'd activate Mark II Securitrons, giving House military force to defend Vegas independently. House's plan was pushing both NCR and Legion out, establishing Vegas as truly independent. If working for the NCR, they'd strengthen the Republic's position, deal with threats like fiends, help President Kimball survive assassination attempts, convince or eliminate the Brotherhood. Prepare for the second battle, ensuring NCR held the dam. If accepting Caesar's invitation, they'd cross to Fortification Hill. Caesar would explain his vision. The Mojave was his Rome, where Legion would evolve beyond slave army into true nation. The NCR was his Pompeii. Conquering the Mojave would complete Hegelian dialectic, synthesizing Legion strength with West resources. Caesar needed help. He'd developed a brain tumor causing headaches and seizures. The courier could arrange treatment. Caesar also wanted help dealing with Brotherhood bunker and destroying House's Securitron army. The final option was independence with Yes Man. The courier could eliminate both House and Caesar, drive out NCR, and claim Vegas themselves. Whichever path chosen, the courier navigated complex factional landscape. The Brotherhood needed help or elimination. The boomers at Nellis Air Force Base could provide air support. The Great Khans could be convinced to abandon Legion. Every decision mattered, changing the balance of power. The second battle came fall 2281. Legate Lannius led Legion forces. General Oliver commanded NCR defense. House's Securitrons were either activated or destroyed, depending on courier choices, and the courier stood at center, their allegiance determining outcome. The way events unfolded depended entirely on the courier's choices and alliances. In some accounts, the NCR held the dam. The courier had strengthened Republic position. When Lannius attacked, Legion met organized resistance. Rangers fought brilliantly. Legion assault broke. Lannius was killed or convinced to retreat. The NCR claimed the Mojave. In other tellings, Legion triumphed. The courier had sabotaged NCR efforts. NCR defenses crumbled. Legion overwhelmed defenders. NCR retreated, abandoning the Mojave. Caesar annexed the region, subjugating tribes and destroying or occupying Vegas. In a third version of events, House emerged victorious. The courier activated Securitrons. Upgraded robots poured from the Strip, overwhelming both armies. House took complete control, establishing independent nation and beginning long-term plans. In yet another possibility, the courier took Vegas themselves. They'd eliminated House, prepared Securitrons, made deals with factions. Neither NCR nor Legion controlled the dam. The Courier did. What happened next depended on their character and intentions. Each ending had profound implications. The Mojave became a crossroads representing fundamental questions about post-war society. There were no perfect answers, only choices with different costs and benefits. Chapter 13, Fallout 4, Synths, the Institute and the Commonwealth. On October 23, 2077, a family ran for Vault 111 in Sanctuary Hills near Boston. A husband and wife, one a military veteran and one a lawyer, carried their infant son Sean as sirens wailed. They made it to the vault, were given vault suits, directed to cryopods. They thought they were frozen temporarily until radiation cleared. They didn't know they'd sleep over 2 centuries. 60 years later, cryopods briefly activated. People from outside entered with hazmat suits. A man opened one pod. The occupant woke, disoriented. The man pointed a gun at their spouse, still frozen. "Give me the child." They refused. He shot their spouse through the frozen pod, killing them instantly. Then he took Sean and left. The survivor screamed, but their pod was resealing, freezing them again. Another 150 years passed. In 2277, something malfunctioned. Cryopods released occupants. Everyone was dead except one person, the sole survivor. They emerged to find their spouse's corpse frozen and Sean gone, taken decades ago. The sole survivor was utterly alone. Everyone they'd known was dead. The world they'd left was gone. Their son had been stolen while they were frozen, unable to protect him. Now they had to survive in a wasteland while searching for a son who might be old or dead. Leaving Vault 111, they found Sanctuary Hills destroyed. Houses were ruins. Trees were dead. Only their robot butler, Codsworth, still functioned after 200 years, loyally maintaining a house that no longer existed. Their first destination was Concord, where they found Preston Garvey and last-minute members pinned by raiders in the Museum of Freedom. The sole survivor helped fight off raiders and a Deathclaw using power armor and minigun. Preston explained the Minutemen's mission, helping settlements, protecting people, building community networks. In Diamond City, a settlement in Fenway Park, they learned about the Institute, a shadowy organization living underground with advanced technology creating synths, synthetic humans. Some synths were obvious machines, others were indistinguishable from humans, making everyone paranoid. The Institute also kidnapped people, replacing them with synth duplicates or taking them for experiments. This matched what happened to Sean. The sole survivor suspected the Institute was responsible. Finding the Institute wasn't easy. Its headquarters was underground, accessible only by teleportation. The sole survivor needed help from major factions. The Brotherhood of Steel had arrived, led by Elder Arthur Maxon aboard the Pridwin, a massive airship. This chapter was more militaristic, willing to intervene but also zealots, believing technology must be controlled and synths must be destroyed. The Railroad was a secret organization dedicated to freeing synths from Institute control. They believed synths were people deserving freedom. They'd been trying to infiltrate the Institute for years. Each faction offered assistance with obligations. The Brotherhood wanted to destroy the Institute. The Railroad wanted to save synths before destroying Institute's ability to make more. The Minutemen just wanted to protect settlements. With help, the sole survivor eventually accessed the Institute. What they found was astonishing. A clean, high-tech facility where scientists worked in laboratories from before the war. The Institute had preserved pre-war knowledge, and there they found Sean, but not the infant. Sean was now in his 60s, father, the Institute leader who directed all operations. The revelation was devastating. The sole survivor had been frozen so long their infant son had grown old. Sean barely remembered his parent, raised by Institute scientists. He'd become what the sole survivor feared, brilliant, cold, convinced surface dwellers were barely human. But Sean wasn't entirely without sentiment. He'd ordered the sole survivor released because he was dying of cancer and wanted to meet his parent before the end. He offered a position in the Institute, trying to convince them Institute work was important. the sole survivor faced an impossible choice: join the Institute, accepting Sean's reasoning, side with Brotherhood and destroy it despite Sean, help railroad free synths and eliminate Institute's ability to create more, or use Minutemen to confront the Institute and find middle path. The Commonwealth's future unfolded differently depending on which path the sole survivor chose. In some versions of events, the Institute was destroyed utterly, either by Brotherhood assault with Liberty Prime, by railroad sabotage, or by Minutemen artillery. In others, the sole survivor took leadership of the Institute, potentially reforming it from within. Each choice reshaped not just the Commonwealth's power structure, but the fundamental question of what synths were: people deserving rights, or machines to be controlled or destroyed. Various side stories added depth. Nick Valentine, a synth detective with pre-war detective's memories, struggled with identity questions. Paladin Dance discovered he was himself a synth, despite fighting them for years. The sole survivor's spouse, dead in cryosleep, represented personal cost. The life they'd known was gone forever. Their partner was dead. Their son was either dead or dying, transformed into someone barely recognizable. Everything they'd valued meant nothing in the new world, but the sole survivor adapted. They learned to survive, fight, build. They made new friends, perhaps new relationships. They carved out a place through their actions. They proved even someone from the old world could make a difference in the new one. The Commonwealth's future, determined by the sole survivor's choices, would shape the region for decades. There were no perfect answers, only choices with consequences. The sole survivor, like heroes before them, shaped the wasteland through decisions, proving individual action mattered. Chapter 14, Epilogue, A Wasteland Still Changing. And so we reach the end of our journey through the Fallout timeline, from the divergent path that led to nuclear war, through the Great War itself, and across 210 years of struggle, survival, and slow rebuilding. We've watched humanity make terrible mistakes, creating the forced evolutionary virus, building apocalyptic weapons, allowing resource competition to escalate into global war. We've seen the immediate aftermath, desperate struggle for survival in a poisoned world. We've witnessed new societies form from ashes: the Brotherhood of Steel, New California Republic, Caesar's Legion, the Enclave, and countless smaller communities. We've followed individual heroes: the Vault Dweller who saved their vault and stopped the Master, the Chosen One who defeated the Enclave, the Lone Wanderer who activated Project Purity, the Courier who shaped the Mojave's future, the sole survivor who confronted the Institute. Each faced impossible choices, deciding not just how to survive, but what world to build. The wasteland in 2287, 210 years after the bombs, is vastly different from the immediate post-war hellscape. The NCR has grown from a farming village into a nation spanning much of California, with what's believed to be close to 1 million people, according to the Republic's own census records. Trade routes connect settlements across thousands of miles. Some communities have electricity, running water, and medical care approaching pre-war standards, but the wasteland still faces enormous challenges. Raiders still attack, mutated creatures still threaten, radiation persists in many areas, resources remain scarce, and humans are still making many mistakes that destroyed the old world. The NCR is becoming imperialistic. Caesar's Legion uses slavery. The Brotherhood hoards technology. The Institute viewed surface dwellers as expendable. The great question running through all Fallout stories is whether humanity can learn from the past or is doomed to repeat it. Can the NCR avoid becoming as corrupt as the United States that fell? Can the Brotherhood evolve beyond isolationism? Can settlements cooperate without being dominated? There are no definitive answers because the wasteland is still being written. In Appalachia, new communities continue establishing themselves. In California, the NCR pushes eastward. In the Mojave, whichever faction won shapes the region. In the capital wasteland, clean water flows. In the Commonwealth, the Institute's fate determines whether synths will be free. And beyond regions we've explored, there are vast territories we haven't seen, What happened to the Midwest? What became of the South? What about the Pacific Northwest or Mexico? The wasteland is enormous, and we've only seen fragments. The vaults, time capsules that preserve populations, have nearly all been opened. Some dwellers integrated successfully, others died, victims of cruel experiments. Technology from the old world continues to shape the wasteland. Power armor, energy weapons, robots, medical technology, all waiting to be discovered. But the most important resource isn't technology or weapons or clean water. People who choose to help rather than exploit. People who build instead of destroy. People who remember the bombs fell because of hatred, fear, and greed, and try to be better. Every settlement that trades fairly, every caravan connecting communities, every doctor treating the sick, every farmer sharing their harvest. These are the real heroes. They're not fighting super mutants or stopping doomsday weapons. They're just trying to make tomorrow better than today, one small act of kindness at a time. The stories we followed, the vault dweller, the chosen one, the lone wanderer, the courier, the sole survivor, these are exceptional people in extraordinary circumstances. What made them heroes wasn't perfection, it was persistence. When it would have been easier to give up, they kept going. When every faction wanted something different, they chose anyway. When the wasteland showed cruelty, they looked for light, and they found it, or made it. The vault dweller stopped the master and founded Arroyo. The chosen one destroyed the Enclave. The lone wanderer brought clean water. The courier shaped the Mojave. The sole survivor confronted the Institute. Each changed their corner of the wasteland for the better. But there's still so much work to do. Raiders still attack. Radiation still poisons. Dangerous creatures still hunt. Resources remain scarce. Old world weapons still pose existential threats. Yet despite all this, humanity endures. Children are born who never knew the old world. They grow up learning to read radiation counters, purify water, defend against raiders, scavenge useful materials. They learn stories of the heroes, tales that inspire people to be brave, kind, helpful. Trade networks grow stronger. Settlements join for mutual defense. Knowledge spreads through schools and libraries. Technology slowly restores, not to pre-war level, but enough to improve lives. Agriculture becomes more reliable. Some nights in settlements across the wasteland, people sit around fires and tell stories. They talk about the old world, reconstructing it from fragments. They talk about their own experiences. They talk about tomorrow, about plans for new wells or stronger walls or trade agreements. And sometimes, on clearest nights when storms have passed and sky is visible, they look up at stars, the same stars that looked down before the war, unchanged by nuclear fire. Some dream of reaching those stars someday. Others believe humanity's future is here, rebuilding the broken world. Both dreams might be possible, or neither. The future is unwritten. The wasteland is still being shaped by choices made every day. Tonight, we've walked through 2 centuries of that history, from divergence to Great War, through desperate early years, into slow rebuilding. We've seen humanity at its worst and best. We've watched people create and destroy, save and sacrifice, hope and despair. The wasteland is a broken place, scarred by old sins and ongoing struggles, but it's also a place of resilience, adaptation, stubborn refusal to give up. Humanity survived the apocalypse. It survived 200 years in a poisoned world, and it will continue surviving, continue building, continue hoping. Somewhere in the wasteland tonight, a settlement's walls are being reinforced. A doctor is treating a patient. A farmer is planting seeds. A child is learning to read. A caravan is setting out. A soldier is standing watch. And somewhere, perhaps, a new hero is being born or made. Someone who will face challenges and find a way forward. Someone who will make choices that change history. Someone who will add another chapter to the ongoing story of humanity's struggle to survive and rebuild. The Fallout world is not finished. Its story continues, in games yet to be made, in regions yet to be explored, in heroes yet to be found. The wasteland keeps changing, evolving, testing humanity's ability to learn from the past and build a better future. As you drift off to sleep tonight, imagine those quiet moments in the wasteland, the peace between conflicts, the small victories making life worth living, the communities helping each other survive another day. Imagine people looking at sunrise over ruins, seeing not just what was lost, but what might still be built. The world ended on October 23, 2077, but humanity didn't end. It adapted, survived, and slowly began rebuilding. The story of that rebuilding, with all its setbacks and successes, its heroes and villains, its hope and heartbreak, is the story we've shared tonight. Sleep well and remember, war may never change, but people can. And sometimes that makes all the difference. If you enjoyed this journey through Fallout's complete timeline, please like this video and subscribe to Daily Lore with Grandpa Ben for more deep dives into your favorite game worlds. Thank you for spending these hours with me in the wasteland. Until next time, stay safe out there.